it's Gretchen Dixon. Today I'd like to look at our CAPA process, P0050, which is our off-the-shelf CAPA process. In order to do that, I'd like to look at a completed CAPA process and show you some of the highlights. Here we see a CAPA process that is complete. You'll have a process details section, which will show you the general information such as the unique ID for the CAPA, the date it was open, the date it was closed, when it was initiated, and whether or not it has any dependent secondary tasks or processes. The process values table includes a listing for each of the steps in the process flowchart. The process flowchart, like all of our process apps, is available as a reference. It includes all the major workflow steps, and in an active process, the active step will be highlighted. So the process values section will include the information entered at each of those steps. The related items section will include any secondary tasks that were created and assigned during the workflow steps, and any linked documents or linked processes. We can link documents at any step in the process, and we can link existing processes. We also have the opportunity to initiate a new child process from within a process, and it can be linked as either dependent or related. If it's linked as dependent, it would show up here and it would need to be completed before this process could be closed. So let's take a look at each step in the process and talk about what data can be entered at each of those steps. At step 1, the initiator will enter what they know about the CAPA at this point. There's a field for CAPA type, continuous improvement, or perhaps it's related to a deviation. They can describe the CAPA and their proposed investigation and action plan for the CAPA. Implement sites, you see I've put site 1. That tells me this is a custom list. It comes by default with just site 1, site 2, site 3. You can change that wording to reflect your sites, whether they're internal sites or external partner sites. There's a place to put the CAPA source. It can be not applicable, or perhaps it was a deviation or a complaint or an inspection that you're following up on. Enter a due date for the CAPA, and then classify it as either minor, major, or critical. And depending on what choice you make, that may impact the workflow going forward. The next 3 fields are CAPA owner, CAPA reviewer, and CAPA approver. This particular process comes with 3 process roles, 1 for each of those. So you can assign the CAPA owner role to people who would typically manage a CAPA or are trained to do so. And you can assign the CAPA reviewer to people who would be good to review proposed CAPA plans, perhaps, and the QA approver will be the one that will approve several of the steps in the workflow. Again, you will only be able to choose from a list of people who have been assigned those roles. A probable root cause can be entered at step 1, and then all of that information is submitted. So where reviewers were chosen, the next step in the workflow will go to CAPA plan acceptance by those reviewers, 1 or multiple. Here I can see that I had 2 reviewers. Each of those reviewers will receive a task in parallel to review the information entered by the initiator, make comments if they would like, and then either approve what was entered or send it back to the initiator for more information. When all of the reviewers have approved as their decision, it will go to the QA approver. The QA approver will look at everything entered so far. They have the ability to open these steps as you just saw me do, make any evaluation and approval comments, and then make their decision. They can approve it to go forward as a CAPA per the defined plan, or they can send it back to the initiator for more information. And again, they can also initiate secondary tasks, initiate a related process, attach documents, or attach existing processes at this step. Once they approve it, it goes to the assigned CAPA owner. It will stay at this step until any dependent processes or secondary tasks are complete, the CAPA owner will not be able to approve it until that situation happens, until all of those things are completed. But at that point, they will be able to approve that their CAPA is complete per the plan that they had defined. At that point, it will go back to those same reviewers to look at it again and see if they agree that everything was done as planned up here at step 2. So they can decide if all tasks were successfully completed or not, send it back if they need more information, and approve it if they feel it's all set. Once both of those people, or as many as you have chosen, approve it, it will go to QA. At this point, QA not only looks at all the information that was entered, but they decide if there should be a verification of effectiveness for this CAPA. So they can make a status decision whether everything so far was completed successfully and on time, make any comments, and then whether or not a VOE is required is a yes or no decision. If yes, they need to assign a VOE approver from QA, and they can describe the VOE plan that they would like. They'll also put a due date on that plan, and then they can approve it to go forward. If there was a VOE plan, there is a step for VOE completion. And at that point, the results of the VOE can be entered and a decision can be made. In this case, it was successfully completed. But like many of our processes, and as I've said so far in this one, people can send it back up the workflow for more information. If the VOE cannot be completed by the date that was selected by QA at the prior step, there is the opportunity for an extension request for the VOE due date and formal QA approval of that. There is also a similar option when it is sitting with the owner for completion of all of those secondary tasks and related processes. If that doesn't happen in time, they also can request an extension, and that extension can be formally approved. When that happens, those are actually added as formal steps. So you will see them underneath this step here as extension request and extension request approval. Similarly down here with the VOE. Finally, when everything is complete, the CAPA closure will happen, and that is the point where QA will make their final decision that everything was implemented successfully and the problem has been solved, and make a closed decision of approved. So in related items, again, you'll see any secondary tasks, related processes, and attached documents. We also have an audit trail on the report and a summary report. If I choose summary report, I can choose some printout options. I'd like to see all steps and any dependent or related items. When I click generate report, it will be generated in a PDF format that is really handy to look at if you get asked for it in an audit or an inspection. It can be saved and emailed. And here you see company address and letterhead. And for every step in the workflow, you see a section where all of the data that was entered is listed, as well as all of your related items. So we see reference to our secondary tasks, and also our other related item, which was a process. So that is a completed process. Just to show you the interface, we'll go ahead and start a new process. To do that, you click on the process section, go to the process menu, click Start Process, and when I click Start and confirm that decision, I will have initiated a new CAPA process. And like all of our process apps, you will see fields where all of the information that I talked about just a minute ago will be entered. Mandatory fields are identified with an asterisk, and all of that information can be entered and submitted. Hope this helped. Thanks.